everyone. I'm Sam Castor, CEO of Evolv Health. I'd like to welcome everybody to the call tonight. Listen, I know we have a lot of our social business partners on here tonight, as well as a lot of guests, and that's great because I'm going to introduce you tonight to a discovery that I think is going to shift the paradigm of healthcare in the world. And so my goal tonight is to go through a slideshow that will basically show you how this new discovery impacts human physiology, how to enhance its efficacy, and finally, how by combining this discovery with nature's most powerful immune modulating molecule called acemannan from the aloe vera plant, we're seeing results that have never been seen in nutrition or for that matter medicine before in terms of its impact on all of the functions of recovery, regeneration, and defense in human physiology. Sound exciting? Well, let's get going. First of all, what I want to say is that the commercialization of this discovery is so dynamic in terms of its impact that it's being referred to as the next gold rush. And you know, that actually could be an understatement because of the number of people that it could impact and the amount of money that it could save in terms of our overall healthcare cost. So let's get right to this discovery. First of all, what does this discovery impact in the human body? It's a system called the endocannabinoid system. You know, just when we thought we knew everything about human physiology in the early 1990s, a group of researchers discovered this system. And it turns out that the endocannabinoid system is perhaps the most important physiologic system involved in establishing and maintaining human health. That's saying a lot, right? The endocannabinoid system is comprised of cell surface receptor sites that sit on the surface of these cells in the most critical glands and organs and functions in the human body. And when supported appropriately, the endocannabinoid system can help the body overcome almost all of the most significant challenges that we experience in life. So you'll see on the right side of the page that the receptor sites are divided into two categories, CB1 receptor sites and CB2. And as you can see, they sit on the cells of these glands and organs, the brain, the spine, the vascular system, muscles, lungs, gastrointestinal tract, reproductive organs, spleen, bones, skin, immune system, liver, bone marrow, pancreas. And they help regulate the cells and all the functions of these glands and organs. The next slide shows that the endocannabinoid system is the master regulator of health. Hey, that's huge. In other words, all of the functions of physiology that equate to health, or CB receptor 1s regulate actions such as memory and mood and sleep and pain sensation. CB2 cannabinoid 2 receptors regulate actions such as energy and balance, immune function, how important is that? Metabolism, and the anti-inflammatory response in the body. That's really important because we know that chronic inflammation is now the root cause of almost every disease process that we experience. So, how do we support these receptors so that we achieve optimal health? Well, there's plants in nature that contain molecules that are called phytocannabinoids. Phyto just means plant. And the plant that has the highest level of them is called the hemp plant. So the hemp plant makes phytocannabinoids that can restore balance and homeostasis. Homeostasis is the state of optimal functioning of an organism. In this case, we're talking about the human body. Phytocannabinoids work hand in hand with other signaling molecules in the hemp plant called terpenes to boost and modulate their individual effects on the endocannabinoid receptors. So we've learned a lot about not only how phytocannabinoids work, but how the other molecules in the plant contribute to that efficacy. Now let's get into exactly how do these cannabinoids, how do we make them most effective? And as this slide says, absorption matters because if you don't get the endocannabinoids into the bloodstream, there's no way of them affecting these receptor sites. So in order for cannabinoids to work, cannabinoids, they have to get into the bloodstream. Hemp cannabinoids are large fat-soluble molecules that tend to cluster up, and so they're not easily absorbed. If you swallow these fat-soluble clusters, they get broken down in the digestive tract and in the liver, and the absorption rate is on average about 10%, somewhere between 5 and 15%. So what does that mean? It means that about 90% of everything you've consumed is just wasted, never gets utilized. Then they found that if you'll hold the hemp product under your tongue, that sublingual delivery system can actually enhance the absorption of these fat-soluble clusters up to, on average, 25%. But you still have an issue with 75% of everything you've consumed being wasted. So what's the solution? Scientists have recently developed a new process that reduces the size of the cannabinoids from 2,200 nanometers down to 25 nanometers in structure, and then emulsifies them to create a hydrophilic or water-compatible molecule. The result? 90% absorption. So what does that mean, breaking it down? Well, it means they break it down to 1/100th of the size of the original cluster, which means it's much more bioavailable. The second thing they do is by emulsifying it, it means that water, when you say water compatible, water becomes the carrying agent of these molecules. And water is easily absorbed into the human body through all the mucosal tissue in your mouth, through the upper GI tract. So the combination of those two things equates to about a 90% absorption rate. Pretty incredible. That means only 10% of what you consume is being wasted. Now let's go back to that concept of the entourage effect. And it says, while hemp cannabinoids have taken the early limelight, it's the synergy activated by the terpenes that may steal the show. That's what science is determining. Each of these terpenes in hemp have their own set of health benefits, and they also help facilitate and enhance the functions of the cannabinoids. One of the more recent discoveries is the ability of these terpenes to help carry cannabinoids across the blood-brain barrier, where the highest concentration of CB1 receptors are located. So if you want the best efficacy from what is absorbed into the body, science is showing that these terpenes make a big difference. Now, why is that important? Because there's about 100 different cannabinoids in the hemp plant. By far, the most abundant is called cannabidiol. You've probably heard it referred to as CBD. You see CBD products everywhere. You see CBD oils. And what does that mean? It means they extract, because it's very inexpensive to extract the predominant cannabinoid in the hemp plant, reconstitute it back into like coconut oil or MCT oil, and deliver it as a product. And that's what CBD products are. But those are CBD isolates. And the question is, do they work as well as the entire composition of the plant itself? In other words, is the entourage effect legitimate? Well, this is the best peer-reviewed paper that I found on that subject. It was published in Frontiers of Neurology in 2018, September of 2018, just a few months ago. And the paper is entitled Quality of Life Improvements in Treatment-Resistant Epilepsy. So this is a quality of life impact on these patients that don't respond to any type of therapy. And what they're looking for is quality of life improvement. So this isn't a treatment or a cure, it's just how do we enhance the quality of life of these patients. This paper is a meta-analysis of various studies that are reporting the benefits of either CBD isolates or CBD-rich, what is called full spectrum or broad spectrum extracts. The meta-analysis looked at 11 different studies involving over 670 participants. That's called statistically significant. So let's look at the results. With CBD isolates, the participants reported 46% improvement over their quality of life parameters. Those that were taking the full spectrum oil, the participants reported a 71% improvement on all those quality of life parameters. So about 50% more. Here's what's really interesting. Look at the next set of data. Average intake of participants. Those that were taking CBD isolates needed 25.3 milligrams per day of isolate in order to achieve that 41% improvement. Those taking full spectrum only required 6 milligrams a day to achieve that 71% improvement. So, what's the bottom line? It took 75% less cannabinoid intake to get 55% better response by taking full spectrum over isolates. So in fact, the entourage effect does work. Next slide talks about enhanced entourage effect. So getting phytocannabinoids into the bloodstream is objective number one. Maximizing their impact requires terpenes, but due to their fragile nature, a lot, or in some cases most, are destroyed in the extraction process. So when you extract, the cannabinoids from the plant, you damage or destroy these terpenes. So new research indicates that adding a specific composition of these hemp terpenes back into the product created a more efficacious effect than adding more milligrams of hemp oil. In other words, just putting some of these terpenes back, as we saw in the entourage effect, had a dynamic impact, more of an impact than even adding more cannabinoids. So adding terpenes can multiply the effect of the cannabinoids, and from an observation standpoint, they think it about doubles the efficacy, adding terpenes back. Next slide talks about the symbiotic immune response. So why is this important? Because immunodeficiency caused by poor nutrition, stress, and toxicity has become the number one cause of disease, disability, and death in the world today. Ace-mannan, the biologically active molecule in the aloe vera plant, has been shown to be nature's most powerful non-toxic molecule for rebooting the immunomodulatory functions of the immune system. In other words, the up and down regulation of the immune system is impacted dramatically by Ace-mannan. By combining the immunomodulating fractions of Ace-mannan with nano-sized hydrophilic hemp cannabinoids and additional hemp terpenes provides a symbiotic effect. What does that mean? It's not synergistic. It's not they all add up and do something good. It's symbiotic, like 1 + 1 = 4. And that can dramatically enhance the overall immune functions in the body of defense and repair. I can't even overstate the significance of putting these things together. And I may have a better perspective on that than anybody in the world today. Because in 1994, I started a research and development company in nutritional science and spent over $20 million researching and bringing to market the first stabilized Ace-mannan technology. And it was just phenomenal, the response that we saw in consumers all over the world. It was so dramatic that in 1999, my wife and I started a not-for-profit organization called Manna Relief so that we could deliver this Ace-mannan technology to some of the world's most medically fragile children. And the success of both ventures was very significant. From a commercial standpoint, we sold billions of dollars worth of Ace-mannan to consumers all over the world, 26 countries of the world. From a humanitarian standpoint, we delivered over 100 million servings of Ace-mannan-based technologies to children in over 90 countries of the world. But in spite of that incredible success that we saw in both ventures, there always seemed to be something missing. In other words, people with the same conditions sometimes got incredible response from an integrative approach, and sometimes not so good. Some conditions, again, from an integrative approach, responded better than other conditions. So we knew that in spite of all the good that we had done, there was something missing, or that's what it felt like. And so my prayer was, God, you know my heart for serving these children. I need to find that missing link. And less than 6 months ago, it was delivered. It came to me. I had a conversation with a colleague of mine from down in Florida who's a medical professional or a healthcare professional. And he'd been working with a group of researchers in Florida that was taking full spectrum, broad spectrum hemp. And the difference between full spectrum and broad spectrum is that broad spectrum has all the components in the plant with the exception of one cannabinoid called THC, which is the narcotic. So they've been working with broad spectrum. They had added extra terpenes to get the enhanced entourage effect. And they were using it in an integrative approach in clinics down there with patients who were responding or not necessarily responding to things like therapies like chemotherapy and radiation. And they were getting incredible benefits from this intervention. And the conversation got around to, what if we could take Ace Man and combine it with that? What do you think would happen? My response was, I think you'd see benefits that neither one of us have ever seen before, because I think there will be a true symbiotic effect, to combining these things. And so that's what we did. We did a small study. And I sent them Ace Mannin. They put it in a therapeutic paste, gave it to the patients, and the results just shot through the roof. And so then I knew that we had ended up landing on that missing ingredient in this equation of achieving optimal health. And so that's what we did. We combined Ace Mannin with the best technologies that we could find in the hemp industry. And so let me go to the next slide that brings all this into perspective through what I call a cannabinoid value proposition. Because this is really what consumers want to know, is what is the best value, not the cheapest cost, but the best value. So let's take a look at that from the science that we've just covered. If you take a 600 milligram bottle of CBD isolate, and that's the typical retail product. People don't know a lot about it. They just take it, and most of the time they swallow it. Let's say that you're getting that 10% absorption. That means in a bottle of product, you're getting 60 milligrams or 10% of the 600 milligram of what I'd call usable cannabinoid. And let's say the bottle costs $39 a bottle. That's 2 milligrams a day of usable cannabinoid. That's 65 cents per usable milligram. So you take the 60 milligrams divided into $39, and that's how you achieve that. Let's say that you're taking a much, bigger content of cannabinoid or CBD. Let's say it's a 1,200 milligram bottle of CBD isolate. At the same absorption rate, 10%, you're getting 120 milligrams, and maybe there's a discounted price of $59 for that. The usable milligram cost is still 49 cents a milligram. Now let's go to fuller broad spectrum. In other words, the entourage effect. Same 600 milligrams of cannabinoid, but let's say because this is a more educated consumer willing to pay a little more money, they get the benefit of holding it under their tongue for a while, and they're achieving, let's say, 25% absorption. So in a 600 milligram bottle, they'd be getting 150 milligrams in that bottle of usable cannabinoid. And let's say that product typically is more expensive, $79. That means they're paying 52 cents a usable or absorbed milligram. Now we have to add in the entourage effect, because that has everything to do with efficacy. And let's say instead of 4 times better, it's only 2 times better at the same number of milligrams. That means you're getting 300 milligrams of effective utilization, which is 26 cents into what I call an effective milligram. So that's a value proposition, full spectrum versus isolate in terms of what it does in the human body. Now let's go to the next category, 600 milligrams of nano-sized, hydrophilic-based, water-compatible CBD at a 90% absorption rate. That means effectively you're getting 540 milligrams absorbed into the bloodstream. That brings it down to 25 cents a usable milligram if the retail price is $138. So you have a $39 bottle that's providing 65 cents in usable milligrams and 138 that's giving you 25 cents a usable milligram. See the value proposition? Now let's add an enhanced entourage effect, not just the entourage, but adding terpenes to it. And let's say instead of 4 times, it's only 3 times the value. So from an effective standpoint, that's the effect of 620 milligrams. You're just multiplying 540 times 3, which brings the value down to 8.5 cents per effective milligram. Now that's just the hemp product itself. When you add the enhanced immune support of a therapeutic amount of ace-mannan, what is the value of that? I call it priceless. And that's what really distinguishes us from everybody else in the marketplace. So let's look at the market. The market is projected by the Brightfield Group to expand from a $500 million industry in 2018 to a $22 billion industry by 2022. In other words, in the next 3 to 4 years, you're going to see some absolutely unprecedented growth. There's never been anything like this in the nutrition industry. How is that sale going to break down? This is what I think it's going to look like. About 50% of all the hemp or CBD products sold will be in retail. And in retail, you're basically competing for price. So you're looking for the least expensive product, which typically is the CBD isolate type of product. About 30% of the sales, I think, are going to come from the more educated consumer. The person that understands full spectrum, understands best absorption rate is under the tongue. And so they're looking for a better value proposition, even though they're paying a little more for the product because they're looking for results. I think nanotechnologies will end up dominating the industry. I think it's going to take a while for the education process to get out there. But let's say over the next 3 years or 4 years, 10% of all the products sold will be nanotechnologies. One of the reasons that it's not a better selling technology right now is because it's twice the cost of full spectrum or broad spectrum. And if people don't know the value of that, again, it just is one bottle product versus the next. And then I think 10% of the industry can belong to us, Entourage Squared. And these are for the people who really want the best value impact. They want not only the best value, but they want the best impact that can possibly come from, hemp-derived cannabinoids combined with, again, the most powerful immunomodulating molecule in nature, ace-mannan, and that's what we bring to market. Listen, that combination is so unique that we were able to file patents on that composition. And again, in my past business, I received over 100 patents on ace-mannan-based compositions. This is the most significant of any of those combinations I've ever seen. And that brings us to the final slide, which is Entourage Squared. It is a patent-pending formula. It is derived from organically farmed hemp oil. It is processed through the cleanest process called supercritical CO2 extraction. It is broad spectrum, which means we have 0.0% THC. It is absorbed at a rate of 5 to 7 times over other hemp oil products. It has the enhanced entourage effect of our proprietary blend of terpenes. And last but not least, the symbiotic effect that comes from the highest rated immune modulating ace-mannan technology in the market today, which is our unique product called Immune. So because we're a social business, guys, I've got to close with this. Every time a consumer buys one of our products, we make a contribution of that same ace-mannan-based technology to children in need all over the world. And that's, again, a very distinguishing thing about our company in the marketplace. So not only do we provide our consumers with the best value, the most efficacious technology, but our goal is to change the world in the process. So I hope you've learned a lot tonight. I hope this helps you understand why the value proposition that we're providing will get the best results and why you want to be involved with us. So blessings to everybody out there, and we'll see you soon.